I'm Ernie Humphrey, Educational Programs Leader for Proformative, the largest online community for corporate finance, accounting, treasury, and related professionals. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar, Recurring Revenue Management, Billing to Retention Best Practices. The rise of the subscription model is transforming a wide range of industries. As more and more organizations adopt the as-a-service delivery model, managing and optimizing recurring revenue streams becomes paramount. Today's webinar will focus on current and emerging trends in the technology available to ease the enormous challenges posed in running a business within the context of a recurring revenue model. You'll also learn how new technologies in integrated billing, revenue recognition, and subscription management can help your company achieve growth and profitability objectives. I would like to thank NetSuite, whose commitment to thought leadership helps us make this webinar possible and delivered at no cost. A quick note on today's agenda. First, we'll hear presentations from each of our featured speakers. Then we'll move into our interactive Q&A session where we will spend the remainder of our hour. We would like this to be an interactive experience for you, so if you have any questions at any time, please go to the questions area in your GoToWebinar control panel and send us your questions. We can't promise to get all them in, but we will do our best, and we'll follow up afterwards with any questions we did not get to. A few logistical notes about the webinar today. A link to today's presentation and video recording of the webinar will be sent out to all attendees within 24 hours of the event. And please note the presentation is already posted at www.proformative.com/resources for free download. Those of you who would like CPE credits will need to answer all polling questions during the event and should have pre-registered for CPE credit. For any questions on CPE credits, please send an email to cpe@proformative.com. Again, we encourage you to ask questions on today's topic via the questions box in your GoToWebinar control panel at any time during the webinar. Finally, you'll be asked to take a short survey today regarding the webinar, and we greatly appreciate your feedback regarding our event today, as we always strive to improve the ROI we offer to our event attendees for their valuable time. A quick word about Proformative. Proformative is the largest online community and resource for senior-level corporate finance, accounting, treasury, and related leaders. Proformative connects corporate finance leaders to provide instant advice on insights on the tough financial and strategic challenges they face every day. Okay, let's get started by introducing today's first speaker, Kim Odom, Director of Vertical Marketing, NetSuite. Kim is a 15-year technology veteran with experience in enterprise software applications including CRM, multi-channel customer service, marketing automation, and ERP. She is currently Director of Vertical Marketing Software at NetSuite. In this role, she's responsible for deepening NetSuite's penetration in the software industry and evangelizing the NetSuite Cloud to software company financial, sales, marketing, and service leaders. Prior to NetSuite, she worked at Contactual, a SaaS provider of customer interactive management solutions, where she was responsible for the development and execution of the company's marketing strategy. During her tenure at Contactual, she played a key role in driving 65% bookings growth, which led to Contactual's acquisition by 8x8. Her extensive background in technology also includes roles of product marketing, product management, and channel sales with startup, middle market, and Fortune 500 companies. With that, it is my distinct pleasure to hand the floor over to Kimberly Odom at this point. Kimberly, the floor is yours. Please take it away for us. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ernie. I'm so excited to be speaking to everyone today on this topic. It's a topic that I'm intimately familiar with throughout my career at companies like Verizon, Quebec Communications, Earthlink, Contactual, and now here at NetSuite. I've managed product line P&Ls as well as go-to-market execution, and across all of those companies, the business was based on a recurring revenue model. Here at NetSuite, I'm responsible for all of our marketing efforts targeting the software vertical, and this is an industry where recurring revenue has quickly become the primary business model. But as you will see today, the recurring revenue model is becoming the de facto approach across a wide number of industries beyond high tech. Here at NetSuite, we've been extremely successful with the recurring revenue model, and so I'd like to share with you what have been our keys to success with the recurring revenue model. Don't worry, this slide, it's not meant to be a NetSuite commercial, but I just want to give you a little bit of insight into the NetSuite business and our revenue environment. We are a software as a service provider, or a SaaS company, which means that people subscribe to our solution. About 85% of our revenue comes from this subscription to the service as well as support subscriptions. So that's the primary source of our revenue, is in a recurring fashion. The remainder of the revenue stream coming in comes from professional services engagement fees. What I'll be doing over the next set of slides is taking you through how we approach the challenges inherent in a recurring revenue business. I'll be sharing with you what we've learned from growing our business over the past 15 years, along with our own best practices across billing and retention that have helped us be successful. So if you look across the high-tech landscape, I'll start there, all of the disruptive innovators who've had a lot of success, companies like Box, HubSpot, Bazaar Voice, Cornerstone On Demand, Good Data, Yammer, these types of companies, they recognized early on that recurring revenue model was gaining momentum. They built their businesses to take advantage of this shift, and the market has rewarded them. But this shift to recurring revenue is actually disrupting a number of industries, not just high tech. But just for 1 minute, let's continue to stay with high tech and look at the infrastructure space. A company like Rackspace, they have very, very quickly become a dominant player as fewer and fewer companies are actually purchasing servers themselves, putting them in a data center, and then running them. Of course, we're all familiar with how the subscription model has also turned both the video industry and the music industry on their ears. Companies like Netflix, Hulu, Spotify, Pandora, those have been instilled as the new guard, and other companies have fallen by the wayside. You can also take a look at a very, very old school industry, which is the automotive industry. They are not immune to this shift either. Car sharing subscription services such as Zipcar are no longer on the fringe. There are a number of factors at play here, but the rapid growth of car sharing is actually fueled by younger drivers who have a fundamentally different perception about what it means to own a car. They view car as a utility, not as a possession or status symbol. So for them, subscribing to a service that meets their car-based transportation needs makes a lot of sense. Even the method by which many of us choose to put food on our table is actually achieved via subscription now. CSAs, or community-supported agriculture, can be found across the country, and more consumers are choosing this approach to acquire things like produce, eggs, meat, artisan jams, jellies, and numerous other items they would traditionally purchase at a one-time manner at the supermarket. Now, of course, on this slide, I'm being a little bit facetious with some of the rest in peace logos that you see here, maybe with the exception of Sam Goody, of course. So is Zipcar going to cause Ford to go out of business? Probably not. But the shift in purchasing for both consumers and businesses away from a one-time model to a recurring model is already having a profound impact across all these industries and many more. So before we go much further, I want to take a little bit of time to make sure everybody kind of understands some of the inherent differences between a one-time revenue model and a recurring revenue model. In a recurring revenue model, the booking is just the beginning, whereas it represents everything in the one-time model. The next area of difference is what you see when you start looking into the P&L. I'll just stick with software since that's the type of business that I'm most familiar with right now. At a traditional software company, all the license was recognized right at the booking, when the license was actually purchased. So everything that sales did in that quarter showed up in the P&L. If someone wanted to understand sales productivity or the rate of bookings growth in the old model, they could see it directly in the P&L. Unlike the one-time model, the P&L of a recurring revenue company doesn't reflect in-quarter performance. In this model, the quarterly performance reflects the overall long-term performance of the business. Every quarter reflects the culmination of everything you've ever done in the past to lead up to that point. Every contract you've signed, every customer you've retained, or customers that you maybe lost. And this is important to understand because it means that the P&L provides insights on some of the fundamentals of the business. If the gross margins on recurring revenue are low, then there's a fundamental problem with the architecture, delivery, or maybe even the pricing, and that might be a difficult or expensive problem to fix. Instead of the key indicators of the quarterly revenue being how sales team performed, it's really a deferred revenue waterfall. Ultimately, this means that the critical success is to build, retain, and grow that base of recurring revenue. So the hockey stick at the end of the quarter is no longer a key factor in looking at short-term results. Building a larger and larger recurring base will be reflected in steady increases in the quarterly P&L. One of the main benefits of the recurring revenue model is because it's model-based, it is potentially more predictable, assuming, of course, that you're focused on and executing on the right things that you need to do, and we'll talk about what those areas are when we get to the 5 keys to success. So we talked to a lot of different organizations, existing customers, prospects, et cetera, who are looking at the recurring revenue model, and we have a really good understanding of what their challenges are. Because the process in this model can touch so many different stakeholders, it can also cause a lot of pain, as oftentimes systems are not well integrated or integrated at all. And it's difficult because sometimes the functions of things like contract management, billing, and revenue management are completely separated from each other, causing manual interactions to occur like at every step of the process. Companies often have one or more full-time resources dedicated to administrating the recurring revenue aspects of the business, and it's precisely this lack of process that makes it difficult to optimize and manage recurring revenue. In addition to increasing costs due to manual processes, customers who don't manage that recurring revenue effectively face challenges across a number of areas that you see here. Things like revenue leakage, and that's where you've got existing customers, you're getting less and less revenue from them. That happens when people downsell or for some other reason choose not to renew their contract with you at 100%. Customer churn. This is a huge area, and there's a lot of different things that come into play when it comes to customer churn. Dissatisfaction, companies going out of business, or in some cases, your customer being acquired. And I'll talk a little bit more about, I have another slide on churn, and I'll talk in more detail about that shortly. You know, mismanaging upsells, another challenge that people have, and basically the failure to take advantage of the existing customer base to upsell and then look at cross-sell opportunities as well. Billing and efficiency. This is a huge problem for a lot of organizations. What they've done is they've taken their billing processes and they've put in these manual adjunct processes to handle the recurring revenue portion, and that just simply is not working for them. It's increasing costs and making things more inefficient. And then there's the topic of revenue recognition. Oftentimes customers or other companies that we're talking to, you know, are using spreadsheets to manage the revenue recognition process, and that leads to a lot of problems as well. So first, let's take a really quick look at some of the best practices around billing. I think when it comes to billing, there are really three key capabilities that all recurring revenue businesses require. First, your billing platform must be able to support multiple and complex pricing models. Second, that billing environment must be as flexible as it is robust, and it should put the customer at the center of the process. Billing system flexibility, what it does is it really allows for you to rapidly iterate on pricing and packaging. It helps facilitate testing of those new offers so that you can see how well they're performing in the marketplace. And third is the capability of providing real-time visibility into how the business is performing, because in the recurring revenue model, each sale or transaction has long-term implications for the business. This heightens the need for this real-time visibility. All three of these areas are absolute requirements when it comes to billing, and I'll speak a little bit more on the topic of billing when I get to our 5 keys for success. But first, let's talk about customer retention, which is another key area of focus for this webinar. Nothing has the potential to do more damage to a recurring revenue model than churn. And you know, sometimes I like to talk about, you know, customer retention versus churn, because retention is a positive thing, and churn is often viewed as a negative thing. But for a minute, let's say with the phrase churn, and let's look at understanding in a little bit more detail why minimizing churn is so important in this model. First off, the rate of churn, when it's combined with the rate of your new customer acquisition, defines not only how fast you can build your company base, but it also puts a constraint on how large that customer base can ultimately grow to over time. Second, churn, which is defined by the inverse of the churn rate and the customer lifespan, this limits customer lifetime value and defines a reasonable limit that you can place on your customer acquisition costs. So this ties back to some of the metrics that I'm going to be talking about when I get to the 5 keys for success. So let's look at this just in kind of practical business terms. If you have a churn rate of 7%, you have to book enough business, based on this example here, to replace your entire revenue base every 10 years before you can even start thinking about revenue growth. And when you take a step back, that's a very, very daunting task. So you have to take a look at your product and ask a few questions, right? Is your product inherently sticky? And then you also have to take into account the customers that you're selling that product to. Are your customers sticky as well? Because both of those things come into play when we start talking about churn. So the bottom line when it comes to churn and why it's so important to minimize that is that for a recurring revenue model, if your company has a high churn rate, the bottom line is, fundamentally it's going to be viewed as less valuable by either the market or external investors, et cetera. It's going to be viewed as less valuable as a recurring revenue organization that has a naturally long customer life. So now I'm going to take some time and go through what we call here at NetSuite the 5 keys to success with a recurring revenue model. And these are some of the best practices and the things that we actually do at NetSuite to manage our own business internally. So the first key I have here is automate your revenue engine. And this is paramount. If you were to ask our founders and our executive team kind of what really allows NetSuite to be successful, it's that we have actually taken the time, and we recognize this very early on, that to build an effective recurring revenue business, it's not just about finance, it's not just about sales, it's about an end-to-end automation of that recurring revenue engine. Again, this is our primary reason for success, and that's why I have this as the #1 key to success. All parts of the business are involved in building and maintaining a subscription and recurring revenue business. You have to consider the impact on sales, finance, marketing, product management, support, and the services organization. So there are a lot of business considerations that you have to take into account in addition to system considerations, things that have to be in place for everything to work properly. Billing and revenue recognition are 2 big reasons why we've spent so much time here putting automation in place. Billing and RevRec are very, very complex. They're even more complex when you are looking at a recurring revenue model. So there you have to make sure that you are taking the time to think through those things thoughtfully and automating that process. At the same time, a lot of recurring revenue businesses have a small percentage of their revenue coming in from non-recurring items, such as professional services in the case of NetSuite, or there might be some physical good that's being sold in addition to the recurring revenue item as well. So these non-recurring items, they can have a big impact on the bottom line, and they shouldn't be an afterthought when it comes to this automation. You shouldn't be handling them in a kind of a one-time manual exercise at the end of the month or the quarter when you're trying to close the books. You also have to take a look at product usage and client management, because driving renewals, as we'll see, is another key point here. So having centralized customer history that's readily available is very, very important. That way the sales team can be informed if there are service issues or billing issues, and ensuring that all the different customer touch points are equipped with the latest information to deliver customer satisfaction, get that renewal, keep that customer retained. So let's look at the second key to success, and that is capitalizing on your customer annuity. Because if you think about a recurring revenue model, what you're really doing is when you acquire a customer, you're acquiring, hopefully what will end up being for you a multi-year annuity, basically. So how do you capitalize on that? This is a critical principle that we take a hard look at here at NetSuite. If you're spending all your time and you're focused on just continually getting new business in the door, then you aren't focusing on managing that recurring revenue base, and you're really missing out on a key part of the business, and you could also be leaving money on the table. So one of the biggest things with this principle is ensuring that you've built in price flexibility. As we know, a lot of different things change. Markets change, the industry change, and you want to make sure that you've allowed flexibility in your pricing and also your processes, so that as that customer stays with you over time, you can continue to have a solution that's going to work for them in terms of not just the item that they're subscribing to, but also the pricing and packaging that comes with that. And I mentioned earlier how the ability to iterate pricing becomes more and more critical in the recurring revenue model. The second part of this is effectively managing upsell and cross-sell. If you're not managing and monitoring these areas, you're definitely leaving money on the table. At NetSuite, we monitor upsell and downsell at a strategic level, as well as manage it at the operational level. So our executives can monitor customers that are upgrading their service or downgrading their service, and they can monitor that information real-time via dashboards. This provides a real-time view into opportunities to drive increased customer value, and it also provides what could be potentially risk to the forecast. This way, our executive team has the ability to change sales strategy and alignment in a timely manner and address any concerns that there might be. Driving additional margin is particularly important in a recurring revenue model as well, and an upsell can drive additional revenue for years to come. This means your sales team must be clearly incented to upsell, to not only renew customers, but also upsell them as well. Downsells are also something to be very mindful of. Monitoring product adoption and product usage rates can help you identify which customers might be at risk for not renewing at 100%. And lastly, understanding your cost to serve, as this will impact your margins. If you don't truly understand what it costs to serve your recurring revenue customer, it becomes really difficult for you as a business executive to make intelligent decisions about where you should be making additional investments in the business. The third key to success is establishing a 360-degree view of the customer. Growing as I mentioned before, growing the recurring revenue business, it's everybody's job, and that's certainly the view that we take here at NetSuite. But without a 360-degree view, that job gets even harder. So a couple of examples. Customer history really needs to be centralized and readily available to everyone involved with a customer. This includes sales discussions, service-related issues, the billing and collections team, ensuring that across the board, everyone who's talking with a customer has a real-time view about what's going on with them. This is how you ultimately drive customer satisfaction and ultimately get that renewal. Another benefit of real-time visibility across the organization is insight into both the sales pipeline. And with a model-driven P&L, which we now know is important in the recurring revenue model, the sales forecast becomes more critical. The model also facilitates revenue forecasting. So through dashboards and reporting that all feed off this 360-degree view, we here at NetSuite are able to keep our executive team informed on current business performance of that recurring revenue engine in real time. Now I want to talk a little bit about metrics. So this is really our fourth key to success, is making sure that you're laser focused on the right metrics. On this slide, you'll see several of the key metrics that we focus on here at NetSuite. One of the ones that's most closely watched for us is annual recurring revenue, or ARR. At other companies where maybe there isn't a contract, annual contract involved, that metric might be monthly recurring revenue, or MRR. Simply put, as a subscription business, we're trying to increase our bookings and recurring revenue base. So at NetSuite, we define the annual recurring revenue as equal to the installed base revenue plus new bookings minus churn. Customer lifetime value is also a strategic metric, and that's one that is very much long-term in nature when you're measuring. We've already talked about churn. That represents the customers that you lose, and when those customers go away, then that results in a loss of your ARR. And I already spent some time talking about that. And then there's a couple of metrics around sales and marketing efficiency that I want to touch on, because really that's oftentimes the biggest expenditure in the P&L, and it's also the one where you have the most discretion on what you're doing with that. Because in a recurring revenue model, the customer is essentially signing a multiple-year annuity, it makes sense to spend more money to win that customer than it would if you were just doing a one-time sale. But since it's such a large part of the P&L, it makes sense to make sure that that money you're spending is efficient and it's trending in the right direction. So there's two metrics in this area that we primarily use at NetSuite. The first is what we call gross S&M efficiency, and that answers the question, how much sales and marketing expense do I have to spend to get an additional dollar of bookings? So that's at a very gross high level. The second is really taking a look at how that spend is actually driving revenue. And we call that sales and marketing revenue efficiency. And that's really answering the question, how much sales and marketing expense does each incremental dollar of revenue cost me? And then you could actually take this to another level and then start looking at the sales and marketing efficiency versus margin, right? So that's another thing that you can do as well. Adoption rate, another very important metric. Especially if you're a company that has a freemium model or you offer free trials, you want to look at maximizing that rate of people kind of moving, eventually using your product, moving off the trial, becoming a paying customer, or maybe even upgrading from a freemium product to maybe a paid solution because they've been pleased with the product usage that they had. And then, of course, you still have to stay focused on bookings. You know, we break our bookings out in terms of both new bookings and upsell bookings, and we break that out further in terms of subscription and subscription or recurring revenue and non-recurring revenue items. So these metrics that you see here are really the key ones that we're focused on here at NetSuite in terms of running the business. So the last of my 5 keys to success is to stay focused on the big picture. And here's where I just want to come back and talk about billing a little bit more. You hear a lot of people in the marketplace talking about billing solutions for recurring revenue. And the way you hear some of them talk, like it's this silver bullet that will magically make everything all right. The reality is, when you step back and take a look at the big picture, billing is one piece of the puzzle, albeit it is a very important piece of the puzzle. But that piece sits right in the middle of a number of other complex business processes. So it's not something that happens at the end. It's not something that you put at the beginning. It really sits right there in the middle, and that's why I like this illustration here when you're starting to think about your systems infrastructure and how, you know, what's needed for a recurring revenue model, and then how billing fits into that. So when you're looking at systems and automations to overcome the recurring revenue management challenges, you know, I recommend taking a bigger picture view or taking a broader view. You know, ensuring that you are setting yourself up to handle all different types of revenue streams here, and you can see we've got a few different ones here on the slide. This includes, of course, all the recurring revenue items as well as some one-time items or revenue that might be coming in from usage or consumption-based revenue streams. So to close on my portion, I just wanted to really quickly summarize what's worked for us here at NetSuite. That end-to-end automation from order and cash, that has absolutely been the key to scaling our recurring business. Flexibility is also important, you know, thinking about not just what you need to be successful today, but what you're going to need to be successful 5, maybe even 10 years out. That 360-degree view of the customer that I talked about earlier, also very critical to success, and it allows you, and it's a great way for you to be able to predict and prevent churn. And then, you know, don't forget about your non-recurring revenue components as well, because those definitely impact the bottom line. And that will conclude my portion here. And I think that means we're probably going to a polling question, right, Ernie?
Yes, that's correct. Yes, that's correct. I've just launched our first polling question. First and foremost, thank you for that great content, Kim. As a reminder, those of you on today's webinar after CPE credits, you need to answer all 3 of the polling questions during the webinar. Of course, we appreciate everyone's consideration in answering our polling question. Time permitting, we may take a look at the polling question results and ask for some comments from our speakers. I'm going to leave the polling question up another 30 seconds or so, and for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our next speaker so we can take full advantage of the time we have with our great subject matter experts. Our next speaker is Dwayne Walker, CPA, CA, Vice President of Finance Achievers. At Achievers, Dwayne is responsible for overseeing all financial and physical management aspects of operations, strategies, including auditing, budgeting, profit and cost analysis, compliance with policy, and managing the finance and accounting department. Achievers helps global companies dramatically increase employee engagement, retention, and performance to drive overall business success. Prior to joining Achievers, Dwayne held management positions with KPMG, Escapa Software, and Sigma Systems. With that, I'm going to go ahead and close our first polling question. And now it is my distinct pleasure to hand the floor over to Dwayne Walker, Vice President of Finance at Achievers. Dwayne, please take it away for us.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ernie and Kim. That was a great, insightful piece of information there. And I appreciate everyone's time this morning and this afternoon. And we're fortunate enough here at Achievers to be a company that has actually been going through the transition from a more traditional model to that of a recurring model. So I welcome the opportunity to kind of speak to everyone with regards to some of the transition focal points that we had, and hopefully you can have a few takeaways based on some of the experience that we've had here at Achievers with respect to the transition. Certainly, as Ernie just kind of mentioned, with respect to our organization being a B2B organization. And if you can hear, I just can't actually flip the slide. If you could just do me that favor. As a business-to-business organization, we focus solely on supplying our customers with a great software product, a SaaS-based product, which allows for them to retain, inspire, and engage their employees to perform at the top performance which they can. With our suite of software tools and analytical tools, we enable those organizations to recognize their employees, but then also to reward their employees with a point-based reward system, which can then be turned into a redemption of product, merchandise, whatever it may be. What's interesting about our organization is we've gone through the process. Sorry, Ernie, if you can advance next slide.
Yeah, if you could just go ahead and left-click on your screen for me, you should be able to take that control for us.
Oh, perfect. Thanks, Ernie. Some of the transition that we had in our organization is kind of transition of us looking at the industry itself. So the industry that we were playing in and currently play in is very much of the recognition rewards industry, which has transitioned over time. Most of you on the call here today certainly understand the essence of a years of service program or performance-based award system in which an individual who's sitting in a chair for 5 years received a free watch. That revenue model or that industry certainly has changed over time. You think about the XY generation of employees that we have here today that make up over 50% of the working population in North America. They no longer are working for an organization for 5, 10, 15 years. They're looking to advance their own personal skills while performing for an organization and looking for the next great opportunity. And what organizations are finding is they need to put tools and procedures in place to actually retain those employees and to inspire them to stay with their organization. And that's kind of the nature of what the Achievers program is doing today. So we certainly looked at the industry and certainly understood where the industry was changing. It's now about kind of rewarding individuals today, not rewarding individuals kind of 5 years down the road, and providing a software tool that can provide both meaningful information to the employee, but also to the organization with respect to identifying who their key individuals are, looking at key trends and analysis of how they can advance employees through the organization. And that's kind of part of the evolution that we had as a company of Achievers, and part of the evolution that we look at our revenue model, because the change of the industry and the change of our business model has changed the way we actually are going to tailor our contracts that we've done over the last year and a half to 2 years. So with respect to the organization, we're looking now as a software organization, looking at the suite of software offerings which we have, including providing a subscription-based offering to our clients and prospects, which is based on a seat fee per month, which is a change from what we traditionally did. We traditionally would invoice those individuals or those companies for the actual reward points and earn our margins off of that model. Now we're looking at setting the value of our software really being the software itself and the tools within it as we transition the organization. Now, some of the things that we've kind of seen when we went through this impactful change over the last kind of 2.5 years or so is a few things. It's kind of the scope. So it's not just changing one piece of the organization, but it's changing the entire organization as a whole. So you need to kind of take a step back and identify really what does this mean to the organization? Who is affected by it? Do we have the right people in the right chairs? And while this seems to be perhaps an easy question to ask, it really requires all the key stakeholders throughout the organization to really identify, A, what's the market positioning of your organization, where's that industry going in the next 5 to 10 years, but also to evaluate the individuals within your organization, which may have been superior employees with respect to your traditional model, but when you're transitioning to a recurring model, a SaaS-based model in terms of Achievers, the software as a service model, making sure you have the right skill sets to understand that transition. As kind of Kim went through, there's various aspects of how it impacts each department of the organization. It's important to evaluate just the full impact that a transition will have on your organization. And it's the mindset of the organization as well. So the mindset in terms of how product marketing is looking at the product offering which your organization currently has, to how it impacts the marketing and sales organization, how they're selling to market. How do those field sales individuals go ahead and represent the product in the marketplace? They're selling to a new type of customer in many ways. How does that roll to your account managers? Are the account managers now just looking to having to now manage closely that relationship with the customer? Because it's all about that recurring revenue and the renewal. In this model, you want to ensure you have a tight relationship with those customers so that that renewal phase happens at a smooth pace. It is not a big renegotiation as it would be in a traditional model of, hey, you've signed a contract for 5 years, it's up for renewal now. You want to be able to have that smooth transition of actually selling that offering out to the customers themselves. Now, kind of near and dear to my heart, of course, being a CPA, is the impact on the reporting and the forecasting aspect of the business. And Kim certainly touched on it, but I can't stress enough the importance of this to organization. It really is changing the mindset which those in the finance executive suite certainly have towards looking at the business. You may have traditionally looked at the size of the contracts, but it's quite possible now it's not about the size of the contract, it's about the actual license seat fee that you have for that contract. It's about the ability for that contract to get renewed. It's about looking at the key KPIs that you have. Here at Achievers, we have a daily dashboard, which we have live information in regards to the number of active users on our platform. At the end of the day, our revenue base is really going to be based on the number of active users that we have engaging in our platform, which we can then invoice out to our customers either on a monthly or quarterly basis. So the ability for us to understand the numbers of active members on the platform and evaluating what we need to do to increase that number to get people more engaged, to make it more sticky. It's an important part that Kim certainly spoke about was the stickiness of your solution. How sticky is your product to the customers, and how hard is it for that product to get removed? One of the great parts of Achievers is we build a product and the software platform itself that is very engaging to the user themselves. And once you have an engaged audience, it's very hard for an organization to remove that product offering away from their employees or their contractors, whatever it may be, who are using the actual platform. So stickiness is extremely important, and being able to actually track and manage the stickiness of your solution will be critical to your success as you look at the recurring revenue model transition. Forecasting is a big aspect too. It's looking at what's critical to your organization with regards to being able to roll out and be able to have an understanding of your reoccurring book of business. And that's what's a great part about transitioning from a traditional model to a recurring revenue model is that book of business is very predictable. And if you're looking to do a transaction at some point in the future, the market itself will always look at, will always value on a higher basis a recurring known book of business, or an organization which has a low churn rate, or an organization which has renewal rates at extremely high percentage. So the ability for you to actually forecast out and know what that annual contract value is, that's critically important to your organization to be able to know where your organization is going today and also out into the future as well. And then, of course, revenue recognition. So at the end of the day, it's great to have this transition from your model into a recurring model, but there's a huge impact in terms of actually how it will get recorded within your accounting system. It's great to have a product such as NetSuite, which can help you kind of record and implement the various accounting transactions, but at the core of the solution will really be how does that new recurring revenue model impact revenue recognition? How can you actually record your revenue at the appropriate time, which matches what your stakeholders and shareholders' needs really are? Specific to software, you'll see Statement of Position 97.2 or Accounting Standards 2009-13. Very specific, very detailed accounting knowledge is required to ensure that your revenue recognition policy really fits with the way your contracts are being designed. And it's important to get your auditors involved or your external consultants involved all up front to make sure that those contracts which you're designing actually allow for the revenue recognition which you foresee your organization desiring. And there's also the impact of professional services. How will the inclusion of professional services or not affect the fair market value calculations within your revenue recognition model itself? The concept of vendor-specific objective evidence and fair value. Can you actually identify what the fair value of your components within your recurring revenue model are in order for you to recognize them on a monthly or quarterly basis? It gets to be a very technical topic, and certainly we use specifically our external auditors to ensure that the way our contracts were designed met the needs for revenue recognition, which met the needs of the organization. I can't stress enough how critical that really is. And kind of just some final thoughts in terms of our organization and the transition that we've gone through. Consider impacts for the organization. It isn't just sales, and it's just not marketing, it's just not the back-end finance department. It's the skill sets which are required throughout your whole organization. If your organization has account managers, do your account managers understand how to sell into an organization that's selling a recurring revenue model? Your customer service team, do they understand the high level of customer service that is required to service those clients? Because it's all about servicing those clients and using that software as that service. It's important to look out. You're not looking to solve your problem of your organization today or tomorrow, but you're looking to see where's the industry going in the next 5 years, 10 years, maybe in 15 years, and trying to go and solve that solution that people and your customers are going to need 5 years out or 10 years out, and finding the correct selling model which allows for you to kind of attack that marketplace. Certainly, as I talked to before, with respect to external auditors, key individuals need to be brought into the discussion points when going through that transition. Legal, certainly, you want to be able to use your internal or external legal counsel working in cooperation with your auditors, your finance and accounting executive team to ensure those contracts are actually being defined in the correct way. That's not going to put you offside for revenue recognition. That's going to cost you to defer a large amount of revenue until a end delivery date occurs. Fourthly, certainly choose technology that will support your long-term solution. We're fortunate enough that we certainly made a decision to go with NetSuite about 3 years ago, and NetSuite being a similar organization to ourselves, being a software as a service play, certainly partnering with them and having their tools with respect to forecasting, reporting, revenue recognition has alleviated a lot of stress in my life as a VP of Finance here at Achievers, because I know I have a reliable technology tool that understands the marketplace and allows for that revenue recognition accounting piece of the business to actually roll smoothly for us. And 5, the customer experience is critical. No longer are you going in and selling to an organization and then stepping away from that company. You're selling to that company on day one up until the day that customer either leaves your platform for whatever reason or stays with you forever. You constantly want to service that customer because that's that renewal phase that venture capitalists, the marketplace wants to see. The ability for you to demonstrate year-over-year consistent recurring revenue growth and retention and low churn is what's going to make your organization extremely valuable. And with that, I'll certainly hand it over to Ernie and follow up.
Oh, thank you very much, Dwayne, for that great content and your insights. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and launch our second polling question. And then I'm also going to kick off our Q&A session as well. Again, for those of you on the webinar after CPE credits, you need to answer all of the polling questions. And again, we appreciate everyone's consideration in answering the polling question. And again, as far as the Q&A is concerned, we still encourage you to ask your questions. They're in the questions box in your GoToWebinar control panel. I'd like to kick off the Q&A with a question for Kim. How does NetSuite manage your subscription contract renewals, kind of a couple ancillary questions? Do you co-term or manage each renewal separately, including upsells?
That is a great question, and it's actually a question, yeah, I've been asked before, and you know, depending on your business, you know, you can take. There's definitely 2 different approaches to take, and whoever asked this question was spot on. What we do at NetSuite is we co-term all of our agreements. So let's say we have a customer comes on board, they buy a certain number of licenses and certain parts of our solution, and let's say it's for a 2-year agreement, and then they you know, 6 months later want to, or a year later they want to expand and add additional seats or additional module or whatnot. And that could happen, you know, multiple times. What we actually have found is a best practice that works for us, it works for our business, and a lot of that has to do with the fact of, you know, we're selling a product with a minimum, you know, 1-year contract, et cetera, and you know, we sell an ERP solution. Is we found that co-terming all of those agreements works best. What that does is that It creates one renewal for the customer. It gives that customer an opportunity at that certain time of the renewal to kind of look across and assess everything, rather than setting up kind of multiple renewals that are happening all the time. So that absolutely works for us. You know, I've also seen the other approach work where you're not co-terming work in other models, and that might be like if you're a B2C player or something like that, then it might not make sense to co-term. You might want to have those very frequent touches with your consumer. So it really depends on the business, but at NetSuite we co-term.
Okay, great. Dwayne, can you share with us how you manage subscription contract renewals at Achievers?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of feeding off of Kim's comment, I'm certainly supportive of the co-term aspect of things. Both it's easier on you as the organization, and so easier on your customer as well. And certainly, we're fortunate enough to be a customer of NetSuite, and based on the number of additional seat licenses that we get as we continue to expand our operations or bring on new modules within our NetSuite platform, if we had to go through negotiations every 3 months with regards to the new functionality that we have, based on not co-terming it, it would be a huge administrative hassle. So I certainly appreciate as a customer of NetSuite that they co-term. That it makes the negotiation phase either at the annual basis or kind of every 2 or 3 years basis a lot easier for us. And certainly for our organization, being a B2B play, we certainly co-term all of our agreements and any additional modules which we have. And I think that's an interesting point that we didn't really touch on, is certainly understand and look at your organization and what you're selling, and does it make sense for you to sell everything as one big bulk bundle of services or modules or product offering, or does it make sense for you to break it down into a basic set of suite of answers for your customers to solve their problems, and then there's additional modules that you're adding on. You can upsell those additional modules. We at Achievers, that's certainly what we did, is we have a base suite for our solution, and then there's additional functionality that we can then upsell to our customers to add on more analytical power for their managers or their executive team, or add on a different type of reporting or redemption flow. So certainly, I think that's a key point, is trying to understand your organization and look at your product offerings and make sure that you're presenting your product offering in the best way possible.
Great. Thank you very much, Dwayne. I'm going to go ahead and ask Kimberly a couple of questions. There are a couple of questions around how a couple of metrics are calculated by NetSuite. So the first question is around the ARR metric. The question is that calculated each month, or exactly how do you calculate that metric?
Yeah. So we're calculating ARR in real time, and we run NetSuite on NetSuite, so we use our internal solution to do that. So in real time, the system is taking a look at across the customer base. It's looking at what that current ARR number is for that particular customer. So, for example, if I'm a sales manager and I go in and I look at a customer record in NetSuite, I'm going to see that ARR number there and understand the value of that contract. And then, because we're calculating that in real time in the system, then we have the ability to roll that up and put that into the different management reporting that we have. Roll that up at a dashboard level so that it's available not only for sales leaders, but also for the finance leadership team, as well as our C-level executive team as well.
Okay, great. The next question is around churn. Can you share with us any details on how you calculate churn?
Yeah, so I mean, we take a look at we actually look at churn on kind of a raw customer number level, as well as an ARR level as well. So and I think it's important to look at both of those so you get an understanding of not only customers that you might be losing, but then also how that impacts the value of the organization in terms of the actual dollars that are leaving as well. For us, our churn rate we have a very, very high retention rate, very low churn rate, and the primary reason for us to lose a customer, quite honestly, is that customer becomes acquired by another party who might not need our solution. So for us, we have a very sticky product that people are really pleased with. So that translates to a low churn rate. But we do measure that on both a net customer level as well as bookings and ARR level.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Next question is for Dwayne. Regarding your finance organization, did you find that you needed individuals with a different skill set or background as you made the transition to the recurring revenue model? And if so, what specific type of skills and experience were you looking for during that time?
Yeah, we certainly did do an evaluation process. So one of the key individuals which I kind of needed to add to our finance group is the forecasting side of our business and financial planning. Being able to model out your recurring revenue stream is critically important for you to kind of get the gauge of where your organization is going in the next year. And that's one of the great aspects of a recurring revenue model is the fact that you have that book of business that you have in your back pocket, or your annual contract value, we call it. And based on that information, you can then kind of forecast out and budget out your spend that you want to do on product development, software development, sales and marketing. So we actually brought in someone who had experience from a similar organization, a software as a service-based organization that had spent a considerable amount of time in forecasting, and brought that person into the fold. And that was kind of the key critical addition that we brought into the finance team.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Next question is for Kimberly. When you were talking about churn, you mentioned sticky versus non-sticky customers. Can you give us an example of each of these types of customers, please?
Yes, that's a very good question. And if a long time ago, there was a point in time where we, NetSuite, we were selling to what I would call a non-sticky customer. Early in our company history, we sold to very, very small businesses, and small businesses are great. Love small businesses. The challenge, especially at the low end of that market segment, the very small business, is that unfortunately most of them do not succeed, and they often go out of business. So there we were selling, at this point, it was, our kind of initial accounting version, and this is, back in the 90s, late 90s. So we were selling a lot of it, but we were selling it, like I said, to an inherently unsticky customer, and then that, as a result, you see high churn. So that's an example of a non-sticky customer. Now, our primary focus, we sell to a lot of different market segments, but over time we've moved up market in terms of now we sell to very, very large enterprises, companies like Qualcomm, Computer Associates, that's just a couple that come to mind right away. And those customers are very sticky. They get the product in, they're very happy with the solution. There's just, they're not changing as fast. Those bigger enterprises less likely to be acquired or go out of business. So that translates into a customer that actually ends up staying with you for a long time. And if you're doing a good job and they're benefiting from your solution over time, you're actually able to grow your revenue base with them.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next question I will direct Dwayne. Can you comment a little bit more on the dashboards, reporting, and maybe some of the other BI tools that you're using to keep track of your key metrics?
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly, kind of similar to NetSuite, the tracking of our annual contract value is critically important to us, as well as our churn rate. So we too provide kind of live dashboards that provide senior management those key stats. But it's also kind of it all comes back to how do you get the customer, and it's important that everyone in the organization, in particular the senior executive team, to understand, hey, how many opportunities do we have in that funnel? What's the status of that funnel? Give me more information about that funnel. How can we as management help to move that funnel? So we provide some key information with regards to our sales funnel, marketing funnel, and how things are progressing that way. We also look at key things of looking at number of active users, number of users in the platform. And there's a suite of information with regards to the uptime of the platform itself. The software-based organization, for us, critical is to provide the best customer experience possible. At the end of the day, while CVS may be our customer, It's really the employees of CVS and their 220,000 employees, which are the customer of Achievers. So it's critical important to us that we understand on our critical programs what's the trending that we have in terms of active users on the platform. What are those individuals doing? What are they actually going onto the platform to do? And that can kind of provide you some key information with regards to what type of selling platform can you actually do. Is there information with regards to behavior within the tool that you're selling that can drive your product marketing team or product management team to design the next phase of your offering? So that's some of the key information that we certainly provide on a dashboard basis and provide it on a timely basis. We're trying to now not to report on historical information, but we're looking to report really on what's going on today, right now, within the platform, within our solution, so we provide meaningful information.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Kim, would you like to add a few comments here as well on the dashboards and other tools that you use to track metrics at NetSuite?
Yeah, I'll just add that yeah, dashboards are very critical. We all use them here at NetSuite across every single organization, and because we run our business on our own product, we're if you're like I said before, if you're a sales manager, we have the sales dashboard that's really focused on key things that are important to that individual. If you're a marketing executive like myself, you're looking at a different dashboard that reports on different things, and the various executives within finance are looking at dashboards as well, and then the ability to kind of roll those up, at each level as you go kind of up the chain in terms of executive management and hierarchy, and then across the organization globally as well, right? So we operate globally. We have customers in countries all over the world and offices all over the world. So the dashboards and being able to report on all that stuff in real time really helps everyone across the organization do a better job of staying on top of recurring revenue and some of the other key metrics that I mentioned.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. We're going to have time for one or two more questions. After I ask the next question, I'm going to go ahead and launch our final polling question. Next question is for Dwayne. What advice do you have in communicating with the board when your company is going through a major transition like the one you've described?
Yeah, so certainly we certainly sought the feedback from the board on a very regular basis. We tried to actually empower the board and kind of leverage some of the skill base and experiences that they have in terms of looking at where we wanted the organization to go and get an understanding of what challenges are in place, what challenges have they seen before with other organizations that can help us ensure that we don't kind of make those same mistakes that past organizations have done. Getting heavily involved in modeling and getting them clearly to understand how the business model will work and what the impact is both on future clients, but also what's the impact on the current clients which you have. Do we have a transition plan for our current clients, and will they be transitioning into a new recurring revenue model? Or are we going to have kind of two buckets, one on the old model and one on the new model? Kind of the key aspect that I can really bring to that is the board of directors really is there to provide their support to the organization, and it's important that you empower them to actually have a voice at the table while you're going through that transition through each phase up until when you've actually launched that new revenue model for your organization.
Okay, thank you very much. This will be our final question in the Q&A session. Be mindful of time. Kim, can you just comment briefly on how you're incenting the sales team to drive the new business, but also drive the upsells and the renewals?
Yes, that's a great question, and there was a point in time when the salespeople, this is a while back, salespeople at NetSuite were driven to do both of those things, drive in new business as well as manage existing customers. And a few years back, we realized that really to grow the business and ensure the right type of focus, we actually kind of now we have the two different parts of the sales organization. We have sales representatives who are responsible for bringing new business in the door, and their compensation plan, and they are incented absolutely to do that 100%. And then we have an account management organization that is responsible and incented to renew customers as well as upsell those customers to either grow their footprint with us or potentially purchase a new module, a new product offering, or some other way to expand the business with us. So for us, really the keys are 2 separate sales organizations and making sure that the compensation around those sales organizations is absolutely aligned with the type of activity that you want them to be driving.
Great. Thank you very much. With that, we'll conclude our Q&A session and coordinate with our speakers and getting any questions that didn't get answered up on proformative.com. As a reminder, you'll be asked or prompted to take a short survey once the webinar concludes. We greatly appreciate your feedback regarding the event. A big thank you to Kimberly and Dwayne for their time and insights. They're clearly thought leaders in their field and excellent source of information on today's topic. Please note in the post-webinar survey you have the opportunity to express your interest in being connected with either or both speakers or our sponsor NetSuite with just one or a few mouse clicks. Thank you again to our sponsor NetSuite, and a big thank you also to the audience for your valuable time. We hope to see you again soon at another Performative event or online at www.performative.com. Make the rest of your day great. Thank you very much, everyone.